Hi, my name's Alexandra McHugh, and I'm in Space 638, Section 800, with Dr. Benjamin Seifert, and I will be talking to you about my Case Study 2 project based on the BACB 5th edition task list items B7 through B10. The client description, I used initials for this case study, which will be PHCA, but I will probably only refer to him as client or the client. He is 6 years and 8 months old, and his diagnosis is autism spectrum disorder. The behavior of concern will be yelling. This intervention's also just starting out, and I took baseline data on Friday, so it is fresh and new. The targeted behavior for yelling, the operational definition is yelling is defined as any instance client produces a vocalization that exceeds the conversation level or noise level of the room at that time. Each instance is one occurrence. Example, mom and I are talking, client vocalizes louder than the conversation level with the vocalization of ah. It's usually way louder than that, way more disruptive, and it's not a functional way of communicating what he wants or needs. When I met him, he had almost no words except for want some more that I'm pretty sure my boss either encouraged him to say. It's from the movie Up. He's a Gestalt processor, so he mainly speaks and communicates through scripts other than challenging behaviors. So the data, there's only one data point because it was the first day of baseline on Friday. However, throughout one session period, his first baseline data point was 14 times throughout the session, which is pretty high, and sometimes it's much higher. So we are going to put the behavior on operant extinction, which is task list item B9. So extinction is a behavior change tactic that occurs when previously reinforced behavior is no longer being reinforced, and the behavior is essentially discontinued as a result of extinction. Operant extinction for yelling, we're going to be reinforcing with alternative behaviors, DRA, which is going to be for functional communication, gaining attention, anything else we can basically come up with at this point. However, our main priority is functional communication. With this image, I retrieved it from How to ABA, which was posted and published in 2019 on extinction procedures. It'll show the baseline data is a little lower than the start of the extinction procedure, but then it descends downward to 0. This is because when you discontinue reinforcement of a behavior that has been historically reinforced for so long, there's going to be an uptick in behavior because that child or adult, whoever it is that you're working with and running this intervention, for me it is a child, there's likely going to be a challenging period where he's going to surge in behavior only because he's so used to being reinforced by this, and he's going to go, well, usually I get what I want. Why aren't I now? Let's see how far I can push this until I get what I want. So that would be the extinction burst within an extinction procedure. But then this graph is beautiful and shows that it goes down to 0. Hopefully this is the same. Differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, DRA. As you can see, this graph is a graph that I did this morning, actually. I put a line in showing where the average is, but the client did average 50.77 minutes in between responses. My title is inner response time. If you don't know what that is, inner response time or IRT data is the measurement in between a behavior. So when the behavior occurs and the pause in between until the behavior occurs again. Socially mediated, which is task list item B7. So although it looks like there's 4 functions here, technically 2 of these functions can go into the top and bottom. So socially mediated attention is to indicate he wants someone to look over and communicate with him. This is when he will yell. access to tangible item if he wants something, even when he already has our attention, he will end up engaging in yelling. This is, however, socially positive reinforcement because we're giving him what he wants after he yells. So therefore, although it's access to tangible, it is still social attention in some way. When he wants to escape a demand, when aversive stimuli is presented surrounding daily hygiene routines or prompted responses to communicate, when what he wants is evident already. When he knows I know what he wants, he can tell I know what he wants, even if I pretend that I don't. He starts yelling, pushing, screeching, slapping, but it usually always starts with yelling. So therefore, escape from a demand. While also socially mediated escape, when someone is present or engaging with him and he is done engaging or wants them to leave the area, sometimes I just have to say hi to him. And when he's not ready for me, he will yell. Oh, and back to escape from demand. The reason why I put that example as a demand is because I'm prompting the response. So although that access to tangible item is still there or denied access because it's being withheld from him until he is able to communicate or even just gesture mine, which is the FCR that we had for him. He's still escaping from that instruction to communicate properly or functionally. So task list item B8, conditioned, unconditioned, and generalized reinforcers. We'll kind of be using all of them because we use food or milk. We use physical praise, verbal reinforcement, functional communication. Generalized reinforcement is when reinforcers are used across stimuli and stimuli is paired with more than one kind of reinforcer. The example given here is functional communication. Whatever it was they functionally and appropriately communicated for is what they're getting. Conditioned reinforcement is when reinforcement is conditioned with a response or stimulus. Social praise, physical praise, edible reinforcement. He likes squeezes, he likes hugs, like the side hug. He likes like a quick like back rub, like if you go really, I don't know, lots of pressure. He likes lots of pressure. Unconditioned reinforcement is when reinforcement does not need to be conditioned, which is the food, snacks, milk. We can offer him something if he's not totally interested or functionally communicating. We can every so often during his DRA, hey, you want a snack? Offer him a snack. You want a Reese's? That's his main go-to. For task list item B10, the last item on the task list that we're going to be covering, stimulus control. When a prompted response that is less restrictive than partial physical prompting is used, client will engage in the targeted behavior. When something is out of reach, client will engage in the targeted behavior. When people are in a space or engaging and he wants to socially escape, he will engage. When there's a sudden interruption in a preferred activity, he will engage. When presented with something he does not want to do, he will then engage. Cooper defines stimulus control as the measurement, whether it's frequency, duration, latency, or magnitude of the behavior or intensity, being altered by the presence or absence of an antecedent stimulus. So this was taken into consideration because we had lost any stimulus control with his previous intervention, and with this, we can potentially gain further stimulus control by having him extinct the yelling behavior and provide stimulus control over the functional communication, because he'll only spontaneously communicate and it's very little, or he will just resort to yelling. And if you verbally prompt him to gesture mine, he will not. independently. It can only be physically prompted at this point, so there's also prompt dependency there. Although the yellow in this graph is only showing, this is because this pause iPad was put on hold, place iPad and bin was put on hold because he was much farther than we thought he was. So for his mine in the pink, although it says gesture to chest, vocally, or icons, their prompted responses were being counted as occurrence versus non-occurrence because there was no prompt level here. Oops, sorry. And when it mastered, tolerate no opened, thumbs up or high five, which he did like once or twice, but it was not repetitive and did not stick. So I requested to my mentor, and she thought it was a good idea if we tested to see and took data on where he was with his mine, FCR, Omnibus Mand, with only independence. And it's very variable. Sometimes it's a little high in the 80s, but with that being said, it's only like 2 to 4 per session, at most 6. But very rarely is there 6 total, and it's never 100%. So here are my references. I only used Cooper, and then my image references. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.